Yeah.
All right. We're vaguely in frame.
Well,
The mics are recording. The camera's recording.
hello.
How are the levels, Jack?
Whatever. Whatever, dude. Beautiful day, Dan, in England.
We've had 2 sunny days in a row, and they've coincided with a weekend. So I'm nothing if not buoyant.
No, quite buoyant. I actually watered some of my beans today because I was like, the soil's drying out. So beans are wet, sun is out, feeling pretty good. Yeah. No idea what we're going to do today, but...
No, we figured we'd get back on the couch, have another chat.
Get back on the couch, back on the wagon.
I do enjoy making these videos, and so let's
Well, I
keep doing
stress
it.
out
Let's keep
about them.
Yeah.
And then once we do them, I'm okay, but I'm still stressing, so you know, what are you going to do? All right. Well, the world's going well, Dan. I think... Are both of us going to try and vaguely talk current events today?
I think so, yeah. It's something that we avoid, or have thus far avoided.
Yeah.
And for the best part of the past few months, I've just had no interest in keeping up with current events at all.
Yeah.
Which is probably just an aspect of winter hibernation. And also, like, it's all just too crazy to even try and comprehend.
Yeah.
But we're going to have a go.
We're going to have a go.
We very recently celebrated the 1-year anniversary of the inauguration of Joe Biden.
Yes, we did. It's weird how that also vaguely coincides with our podcast as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about this on
Solidarity.
episode 1 of the podcast. You have just voted for Joe Biden
Fuck,
with
yeah,
your
that's
absentee
right.
ballot. So
Oh
I
my
was
God,
thinking
what have I
about
done?
in hindsight.
What have I done?
In hindsight, how do you feel about telling
Voting
people,
for Joe Biden?
well, maybe,
Or
or maybe
telling
just
people
telling
that I voted for Joe
people that you
Biden?
voted for Joe Biden?
Yeah, it's really weird.
I don't really mean that you made some kind of mistake or failure. I
Well,
mean, like,
here's the thing.
casting a vote for the Democrats in California is basically meaning casting one vote. Never particularly interesting.
Exactly. I don't know. I've thought about this a lot because it's like, first of all, why did I say that on the show? But also, why did I vote for Joe Biden? I didn't vote for Hillary. And so now I feel okay, so my goal was to have street cred with the liberals, to be like, okay, sure, I voted for Biden, whatever, but he's an idiot and this isn't going to go anywhere. Here we are a year in, it hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
But also yeah, I don't know. I don't fucking know. I think it was just brain rot, quite frankly. It's again, didn't really make much of a difference either way, but maybe it would just make more sense for me to just be yeah, I in the future, I'm not going to fucking vote for Joe Biden. What are you going to do?
I mean, it's probably meaningless either way.
Yeah.
And
I could just lie.
To obsess about the decision is probably the worst.
Exactly, yeah.
There were either in hindsight or at the time. I mean, I could imagine having done it. I can imagine doing it again.
I voted for him and I'll vote for him again.
Yeah. I'll probably vote for Comrade Keir if he's still the leader of the Labour Party when the time comes.
Yeah.
Because I am a dues-paying member of the Labour Party, so I can say nothing other than I will vote for the Labour Party.
A year ago, I remember us talking about maybe we won't.
Yeah.
Maybe time to leave the Labour Party. What are you going to do? I don't know. No alternative at the moment. So I would say either just lie to your liberal friends and say, yeah, I voted for this person, but here's why we need something else. Or just, have the guts that I don't have.
Or lie to your Labour Party branch secretary. And then,
exactly. I don't know. How do I feel about Joe Biden? Yeah, he's Joe Biden. He's Sleepy Joe. What are you going to do? Yeah, I don't know. Segue, because I was going to bring up the infrastructure bill, I think. Kind of a bit of old news at the moment, but it's pretty telling. Pretty telling the way that... I don't know. I feel like we don't really need to rehash what happened with the infrastructure bill, but just really quickly, it wasn't just going to be an infrastructure bill. It was going to be all sorts of stuff, a lot of really good stuff, quite frankly. I'll say it. But then it very quickly got split into 2 different bills. One, which was the capitalist-friendly, infrastructure bill, and the other one was the Build Back Better bill, which is a horrible name for a bill. What are you going to do?
It's alliterative, though. I do appreciate some alliteration.
I do like bees. It's like the Better Business Bureau, but... that is not going to pass now, and it looks like the capital-friendly one is. And this is basically all just to say Democratic Party can't even do reform. So, what are you going to do? It's pretty upsetting because it's like I said, there were a number of good things that would have made me feel good about having voted for Joe Biden. if you could get anything passed. But like two things. One, the American Constitution, as I think we'll come on to, is written so that nothing like this can really ever get done if the capitalist class doesn't want it. And that, that takes me on to point two, which is that like the capitalist class, we can say, has gotten to the point now where it doesn't ever want any reforms at its own expense. But in reality, that's always been the case. I mean, the Constitution was written so that could be the case. And even if we go back to like the New Deal, the like fucking, post-war compromise, beginning to think that wasn't ever actually a thing. And even as we saw in our CIA reading, when we were just reading about the Dulleses, like, there was never a point where the capitalist class was happy with the like meager reforms that FDR was doing. And now that kind of like neoliberalism is starting to run its course, / has run its course, it's just gotten to the point where like even some of the things that you wouldn't have expected that would have been something like in the original bill, there was something like you have a baby, you're really sick, you can have 12 weeks off. That got stuffed down to 4 and then just got rid of completely. And it's like, that doesn't seem to be like a big deal. Like, why is the capitalist class so mad about that? It's like, just give like, if you have a baby, you can have 4 weeks off. Okay, fine. I don't get like even that. So all I'm saying, milquetoast reforms, Democrats can't even do that. It fucking sucks. And like, surprise, surprise, but like, it isn't just that Joe Biden is a horrible negotiator when he staked his entire reputation on being a good negotiator. It's that the capitalist class just won't let it happen. So I don't know. What the fuck are you going to do? How do I feel about voting for Joe Biden?
Fair enough. Yeah, where to start with that? There's so many places. I suppose the reason to talk about the infrastructure bill is that if we're assessing his like legacy so far, it's a centerpiece of it, is it not? And correct me if I'm wrong, that one of the reasons why it didn't pass is because of like conservative Democrats, rather than like
the two of them specifically.
It from happening.
Cinema, I think that's how you say her name. I don't know. And Manchin, the other Sleepy Joe, perhaps not so sleepy.
But it does because like, yeah, you're right to. We would think in terms of like the willingness of the capitalist class to accede to any amount of reform. I think I wonder whether I suppose that's the question of why is that prohibited?
Yeah, I know.
And I guess it has perhaps multiple origins, right? We talk about you were talking about the U.S. Constitution just preventing majoritarian politics in the US kind of thing. Like it very deliberately splits power between lots of different places. The various checks on power are intentionally designed to prevent a direct representation of majoritarian desire, even if a mandate were given clearly for some set of reforms. The Constitution is designed to prevent that from happening. It makes me wonder, because the US has one of the most like conservative constitutions in the world in terms of the ability to actually change it. Yeah, I mean, it sort of makes me wonder how the number of amendments to the Constitution that there have been ever actually happened, but the likelihood that one will ever occur in the future, short of complete repeal. But the other thing that makes me think of is just like, I guess there are several things that govern whether the capitalist class is willing to give concessions. One of them is just the general state of the economy and what in Marxist terms we might call the sort of rate of profit of
just the business cycle.
Yeah, but maybe just the business cycle, right? Like, if you're at a high point in the business cycle, maybe they will be willing to give concessions or reforms that they might not otherwise be willing to do. But it also takes something else, right? It takes an actual movement for reform, right? Like, what was the state of the workers' movement when the sort of like New Deal compromise was the mainstream of American politics? Now, that wasn't necessarily won by the workers, but the working class was in such a degree of power that it had to be acknowledged and accepted. Yeah. And I think that's the basis of the failing of liberal leftists' relationship to the Democratic Party, is the Democratic Party, it doesn't represent that politics. When push comes to shove, won't isn't going to follow through on ostensibly left-wing reforms that it may have promised to win liberal leftists' votes.
Yeah.
But then it brings into question, well, what should the liberal leftist relationship to the Democratic Party be?
Yeah, exactly.
Should it be none at all? I think we would probably come down on closer to the none at all end of the spectrum than we would to the...
a little bit as a treat.
I mean, a little bit to sort of like satisfy our masochistic desire. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, speaking of those masochistic desires too, hang on. First of all, let me check this. Yeah, that's fine. Speaking of those masochistic desires, I was doing a little bit of thinking about, like, I saw a take on Twitter that was like something along the lines of...
We're going to do Twitter review now.
We're doing Twitter
this is what passes for left-wing journalism, Twitter take review.
Well, no, because I think that this was like actually legitimately a bit of a, not a mainstream opinion, but like the further left you got on the spectrum, so people might have believed this, that Manchin might have just been a fall guy, right, for the Democratic Party, that, you know, Joe Biden didn't actually want any of this stuff to pass. Arch Machiavellian Joe Biden. And so they set up, you know, the one senator to take a stand, and they could be like, fucking Joe Manchin. I don't think that's true. I think that Joe probably did want to get all this stuff passed. If for no other reason than he wanted to have a legacy at all, other than being a like one-termer, you know, guy who just called, you know, reporter a stupid son of a bitch on a hot mic.
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
Which is a pretty good legacy to me. But that just got me thinking about, you know, the relationship we all have to revolution. If we are revolutionary Marxists or socialists or whatever, like, it's a very dangerous position to maintain, because it's like, you don't ever want a revolution to actually happen, because they're all really tragic, bloody, brutal things, right? And so I'm kind of always like, I'm always a little bit tempted, right, to be like, maybe there's another way. Maybe we don't actually have to do the whole bloody revolution thing. And maybe we could, you know, if not something like the SPD, maybe just, I don't know, maybe it's just like the, you know, leftover liberal in me that's like, maybe the Democrats will give us something. You know what I mean? And before the Build Back Better bill was just completely trash, and it was just like, all right, whatever. There were some good things left in it. Obviously not things that were going to amount to any kind of class struggle or anything like that, but things that would be good. And I don't know, man. It's just like, it's a hard line to toe. A hard line to toe, because it's like...
You mean the revolutionary line?
The revolutionary line. Because it's like, obviously, class struggle has to play a component, as you're saying, in any kind of even just reform. But like, if you ever want to get to the actual like socialist society bit, there's going to probably have to be something resembling a revolution. But it's like, sure wish there wasn't. You know. So.
Well, I mean, we would like to see revolutionary change.
Sure.
In the sense that we would like to see irreversible alterations to the political economy of the world, such that we could say that we were no longer living in a capitalist society, but we're living in a more egalitarian one that we would call socialism or communism, right?
Sure.
That's a revolution. But then there's the politics of revolution, and as you describe, like the legacy of the meaning of the word revolution that we have that comes all the way from the French Revolution and through the history of capitalism itself and the history of the last 2.5 centuries, I guess.
Well, can I just say on that too, like, even if you look at, say we just take the Brenner thesis, right, of origin of capitalism, that was, even though you probably wouldn't call that a revolution, I suppose you could. Actually, I suppose you would, but like, it isn't a revolution in the typical thinking about it sense, but like, wow, there's a lot of suffering.
Yeah.
When you hear about the like enclosures causing just like roving bands of peasants just dying because they didn't have work or food or anything. I don't know.
Well, I think in terms of the revolution, the transition between, say, the feudal and capitalist modes of production was a protracted revolutionary period, and isn't just represented purely by one moment in the end of the 18th century in France. You know, there were changes in the political economy, but it also necessitated political revolution to overcome certain impediments in certain ways. And to some extent, that political revolution may well have been the French Revolution, but also it's Napoleon, it's Bismarck, it's in some ways even the legacy of Russian social democracy and Bolshevism, in the sense that they were aiming for political reform, and obviously ultimately ended up contributing toward the growth and transition to capitalism in Russia, although that's a whole other story. But like, so it's a mixture. It's a mixture of revolutionary change that's economic and a corresponding political revolution.
Sure.
Now, coming back to our like transition to socialism, we can make demands of the capitalist class. We can make demands of the sort of governmental state structure that is the representation of capitalism in a I don't know, abstracted form, I suppose. And we need to build a movement that's able to actually back up the desire for those demands with a corresponding threat, right? But you're right to say, like, if you are like giddy at the idea of revolution, I would ask you to reconsider your politics, because no political revolution. Well, I mean, there've been some bloodless ones, but there have been certainly some bloody ones, and nobody should be desirous of that. But the necessity sometimes for political revolution is primarily spurred on by overcoming impediments to that historical progress. And the bourgeoisie and the capitalist state will, in all likelihood, represent an impediment to that progress. If they end up not representing an impediment to the transition to socialism, fair play, all power to them.
Sick. Like, Princeton, revisionism, baby.
But the possibility and the likelihood of the necessity of some kind of political revolution may well be there, but that's not the sort of like ultimate high point of our politics. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. And I mean, I guess that also just gets into what you're saying about just the idea of a fairly inevitable class war, because maybe on some planet it would be possible to have like this long drawn out peaceful walk to socialism. Maybe. No, but maybe. Now with just all of the exogenous factors that we have around climate change and around, I suppose even nuclear weapons and this and that, not going to happen in terms of like a very slow, easy march to socialism, or at least one that saves us, you know what I mean? So I don't know. It also gets into the idea of a class war and about like, should we be fetishizing that? Should we be fetishizing this? But also like trying to prepare for it because we have an understanding of class that allows us to perhaps see what's around the corner. I came across this way of thinking recently about like, I don't know, I was just speaking with someone and they were like, revolution's coming, man. It's, it's going to be here soon. And it's, all we can do is like try and push for that and make it happen and, be ready for when that inevitably happens. And I just kind of left that conversation feeling a little gross because it's just like, that's all true and that's all well and good, but also like, I don't know. Don't know if I need to be around for that. You know what I mean? Yeah. If I am, I'll do my best to help out. But like, God damn it, sure would prefer not to be.
I think my thinking on this question is because what it comes down to is the relationship between an ultimately revolutionary politics and the necessity of doing practical politics in a bourgeois regime, which will sometimes necessitate supporting reformist processes, supporting reformist legislation. But I think those two ideas are synthesized if you think about it in terms of taking a relationship to the class struggle. And if the class struggle is always happening all about us, everywhere, your role is to involve yourself in that struggle and potentially contribute toward it being a conscious activity and one which aims not at the day-to-day back and forth between the two great contending classes of our bourgeois civilization, but rather a politics that might overcome that ultimate contestation and assuring a classless society.
Hey, there we go. It was very funny because on the show, the last episode we did, we talked about why it's kind of silly to compare Rome to America. And then I was reading something that was like, you know, the American capitalist class's complete inability for reform at its own expense. And I was like, it's the Roman aristocracy.
Yeah. I mean, in that sense, yes.
Well, I mean, it's funny, right? Because, you know, we've come across the idea of like classes trying to maintain their own status quo, inevitably leading towards some kind of break with their mode of production, leading into something different. And I was like, well, you know, we're seeing part of that right now. Everybody just trying to maintain themselves the way that they are. But it's like, I don't know. It would sure be nice if it was obviously going to be socialism coming next, but we'll see.
No, I mean, it's there is no inevitability to history.
Yeah.
There is some degree of progress if one looks at history, if only in the sense that once something has emerged into history, it's very hard to get rid of it, right? So history, particularly the history of human civilization, is an additive one. And maybe we forget things or neglect things for a little while, but nothing disappears entirely. But at the same time, it's not a directly teleological process. There isn't like an aim in sight, and it's just the next logical step after capitalism is socialism.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if that is the case, looking at what we learned by looking at the Roman Empire, or what we came away with, is it's quite possible for a political economy and a state system that supports a political economy to live in a state of extreme decadence for a very long time. And the push factor that ultimately overcomes it, I don't know. Maybe the Visigoths will come and save us.
Dude, the Visigoths show up. I don't care. I'm joining their side easily. I'm going to be joining their side. Ostrogoths, perhaps not so much. Okay. Visigoths, hell yeah, baby. I at the bookstore recently, I found an old beat up copy of Hobsbawm's book about the short 20th century. And I read the first chapter before being like, what the fuck am I doing? I have to read this Perry Anderson book. But it's interesting because he was just basically talking about how perhaps when we look back on the 20th century, we'll see the most striking thing, not as all of these wars, but the fact that the kids being born now are like the first generation since like the Neolithic era to not just all be fucking farmers. And to not, where the vast majority of the human population doesn't just, you know, not just subsistence farming, but live and work on farms. And I was like, oh, like it's very easy to get bogged down in all, you know, the differences between like, you know, Corinth and Athens and Sparta and their modes of productions, but also like, damn, it's also good to keep an eye on the big things.
Yeah. It's hard to see the longue durée of the history, the history, in the nature of the historical period in which you live. So we should worry less about this Joe Biden character and
Sleepy
more
Joe.
about the changes in the way that human beings live across the planet.
And
the relationship those changes are having upon the planet.
Absolutely, yeah. It's funny because it is a very like typical liberal attitude to be like, you know, obviously we just need our good guys in there. And once we get the Joe Biden and not the Trump, then it'll be good. And I don't have to be mad, but I will still be mad. And then in, you know, fucking 2024, then I'll be mad again. But like, I don't know. Reading about the infrastructure bill and stuff like that, it gave me some nuance because it's like, it's too easy to just have the typical approach of like, Democrats, they're all fucking bad. Because obviously, you know, Joe Biden isn't fighting for us. But I don't know. I also don't believe the bullshit about the Fall Guys stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like,
it's very easy to oscillate between putting your hope in a reformer and then being jaded.
Yeah.
And I guess the ultimate aim is to escape that paradigm entirely.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. I think that's the last thing I wanted to say was that, like, how do we really, you know what? I got to close that curtain. Otherwise, I'm just going to be light.
One day we'll get some like LEDs.
Yeah, one day. We'll not just sit in front of the fireplace on a couch that we have to move every time. One day. We get that Patreon money one day. I think I just wanted to talk a little bit briefly about how we actually relate to current events as commies, as socialists, because it's so easy to, maybe not how we relate to current events, because we know how we relate to current events. Fucking Joe Biden did a thing.
We avoid it like the plague.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, that. But it's more so just like, yeah, bourgeois things, bourgeois. You know, what are you going to do? But I think maybe what I want to talk about is how we actually sound like normal human beings, and how are we supposed to maintain the same critique? How are we supposed to level the same critique at everything and not come across like complete cranks? Because, you know, we talked about this on the show the other day. It's like, how are you going to hear about Kyle Rittenhouse? How are you going to hear about fucking the climate crisis? How are you going to hear about the infrastructure bill and sound normal if you're just like, thought about the value for him, though?
Yeah, Jack and I have had a running joke for a little while. It's like everything comes down to, have you thought about the contradiction between use value and exchange?
Yeah, exactly. But did Joe Biden consider? Yeah, I don't know. Because it's like, I know I sure sound like a crank when, I don't know, maybe I sound like a crank, but maybe I just sound lazy. Because it's like, it's all capitalism. I don't know. That can sound like you're not really doing much critical thinking, but it's like, no, you are. You've thought about it a lot, and you've kind of come to the conclusion that, like, capitalism bad.
Yeah.
And
it's very easy to step away from it. But also, I guess, there are realms of politics that are not what's covered by political news media, I guess. Like,
sure. Oh, yeah.
When you have conversations with your colleagues that are about your disquiet in the workplace and what you might consider doing about it,
sure,
that's engagement with politics. That's engagement with people's lives in a way that they. Now it's entirely different sphere of discourse. And where if they at some point bring up how they feel about Joe Biden or Donald Trump, then I don't know what you say to that necessarily. But
yeah, I don't know. I think maybe in the past I've kind of like not stuck to my guns as much as I should, and just kind of been like, well, yeah, okay, you know, maybe sure, you know, maybe there's some room for some discourse, but I don't know. We got to break with all that, because like if we are serious about wanting to create a socialist society, you can have the same critique about just about everything. Obviously, I'm not trying to say that you just go around saying capitalism is the cause of all of your problems, because it's not. But like, and you do need nuance. But you know, it's okay. It's okay to be like, you know, Joe Biden's an idiot, fucking Trump's an idiot, Hillary's an idiot. They're all idiots. As long as you back it up with something, because yeah, a lot of socialists I think just wander around and are like, it's all just capitalism, man. But like, it is all just capitalism. And it's like, I don't know. How do you balance that? You gotta have some nuance. So I don't know. Maybe that's just why I don't fucking care at all about current events, because it's just like, hey, I'm already depressed enough. You know, I don't need to read about this.
Hey, it's World War III.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what are you going to do? I think we should go join the Azov battalion, Dan. That's what we should do. I'm sure there are a bunch of
take some of that CIA money.
Yeah, exactly.
I read a headline because I don't know the story broke that the CIA had been funding the Azov brigades.
I don't believe that.
And initially, I was like, "Ooh, that's a meaty story," and then I realized no, that's entirely like both in correspondence with what I understand the CIA's activity to be, but also like just taking a survey of the contemporary geopolitical world. Makes perfect sense.
You're telling me they were buying guns from Libyan rebels and giving them to ISIS? I don't buy that. No. Not my CIA. Not anymore. Sure, they might have killed a president, but I don't buy that. I don't buy that. Whatever. Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, we won't be going to join some kind of popular front in the Ukraine.
That's the Ukraine and Russia is the perfect example of what I'm saying, because it's like, you don't need to be like NATO out of Ukraine, therefore Russia good. You're perfectly allowed to say both imperialist, both kind of, you know, not interested in either of these. And hey, Ukraine also not run by the best people. Ukrainians, love them to death, salt of the earth, all great people. But yeah, you don't need to pick sides in these bourgeois. What's the word that I learned? Antinomies, whatever. Bourgeois, you know, fights. You don't need to pick a side. It fucking sucks. You don't need to pick a side with Biden and Trump. You don't need to pick a side with fucking Russia and America. It's just like, yeah, whatever.
And definitely not if the reason why you're choosing to side with Russia is some kind of peculiar, seeing some peculiar continuity between.
No kidding. No kidding.
The USSR and Russia.
We should do an episode.
In terms of purely anti-imperialist politics, we have to support the
the underdog,
Donbass separatists.
Yeah, exactly. We should do an episode on the actual fall of the Soviet Union in like 1991 and like the fucking blowing the shit out of the White House or whatever. Not the American White House, but not even a house. The White Building, whatever it's called. I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll save it for an episode.
Was that a bloodless revolution?
No. Supposedly, yeah, okay. Well,
that's I'll save that for another show.
But yes, just like China's they're this close to socialism, Russia is like that close. They're like almost there.
Yeah,
whatever. All right, whatever. Fuck it.
Okay. God bless Putin.
God bless.
God bless.
Sleepy
President
Joe. President G. Yeah. Leader for life. Homie for life. I don't know. All right. Well, we'll be back with another episode next week. Should have turned that off. And let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about. Because I don't know. We just fucking let's talk about anything otherwise.
Share, subscribe. Leave a comment.
Leave a comment. Join our Discord.
That'll be very nice.
You can come see me post into an empty void if you join the Discord. You see a sad man post sad things.
Even I'm not there to support him. Okay.
All right. Well, I've been Jack, and thanks.
I've been Dan. Thanks for watching.